The incident was discovered on May 12, 2025, when Mr. Vu and his wife detected a strange smell in the house and hired someone to check. The ground floor house, hidden deep in a winding alley in District 12, has become the new home of Mr. Nguyen Van Vu's family for more than 3 months now. Although not too spacious or comfortable, it is cozy enough for the couple and their 3-year-old child. They bought the house from an elderly woman named Hong, who is said to have moved to Da Lat to live with her children and grandchildren at first. Life was peaceful, but from around mid-April, Mr. Vu began to notice a strange odor in the kitchen area. A musty smell mixed with something hard to describe. At first, he thought it was a leaking sewer or a dead rat somewhere in the wall. He and his wife cleaned thoroughly and sprayed insecticide to remove the odor continuously. But it did not subside. By early May, the smell became increasingly strong. There were nights when the whole family could not sleep because of the strange smell that permeated the air. His wife and Lin suspected that the drainage pipe in the wall might have broken, causing dirty water to leak out over time. Mr. Vu decided to hire a worker to check. At noon on May 12, when the worker came to drill into the wall next to the kitchen, everything seemed like a normal repair. But when the drill bit went deep into the old plaster, a soft pop sounded, the wall cracked, the stench came out, immediately turned into a strong death smell, so suffocating that everyone present had to cover their noses to vomit. The worker was shocked and shouted, "What's in here? This isn't a pipe." Mr. Vu approached, took the hammer, and chiseled a few more pieces. A piece of translucent plastic was revealed behind the cement layer when he tried to pull on a part of the purple, badly decomposed human flesh, causing the whole group to recoil in horror. Just a few seconds later, Mr. Vu's wife screamed loudly and ran out of Mr. Vu's house with her hands shaking, her face pale, and she quickly called 113. Less than 20 minutes later, the ward police and local militia arrived and immediately sealed off the entire area. Curious neighbors gathered at the alley entrance, chatting excitedly. News of a body hidden in a house wall quickly spread throughout the neighborhood like a fire spreading through a dry forest. Ho Chi Minh City Police Department PCO2 also quickly arrived with forensic equipment. At the scene, the body was identified as a female, wrapped in many layers of nylon and old cloth, and stuffed deep into a wall cavity built contrary to the original design of the house. A forensic officer whispered to Captain Nguyen Minh Thuan, who had just been ordered to set up a task force in 17 Hertz, in charge of investigating the case. The victim had been dead for at least half a year, showing signs of severe head trauma with no identification papers. Captain Thuan looked thoughtfully around the cramped house, but it had hidden a gruesome crime, a murder and disposal of the body right in the heart of the city, in a crowded residential area, which showed the level of calculation and coldness of the perpetrator. The task force officially went into operation that evening. The reconnaissance teams were urgently mobilized. A group was in charge of examining the scene and identifying the victim. Another group reviewed the history of the house, traced back to the previous owner, and checked the missing person records in the area. On the night of May 12, the sound of light rain fell outside the porch. Inside, the bright yellow light covered the body. The body had decomposed, starting a long and tense investigation. A horrifying secret was exposed from the stench under the seemingly lifeless bricks, and that was just the tip of the iceberg. On the morning of May 13, the 517H Task Force held an urgent meeting at the headquarters of the Ho Chi Minh City Criminal Police Department BC02. Captain Nguyen Minh Thuan, the team leader, spread out the crime scene files, discussed each forensic photo, the scene diagram, and the traces of blood leaking along the concrete wall were all enlarged. Almost all of the elite reconnaissance force of the BC No. 2 went to the location of the victim, who was killed and then wrapped in plastic and hidden in the wall. There were no documents, no special tattoos. The body was in the 4th degree of decomposition. Preliminary speculation was that the time of death was 6 to 9 months ago. Major Hung, the forensic officer, reported that the notable point was that the body had broken bones in the skull area, consistent with signs of being beaten with a hard object. However, there were no signs of dragging or struggling, indicating that the crime could have happened right in the victim's house. With no ability to resist, the task force quickly divided the task of Team 1 to track down the victim's identity from the city-wide missing person system. Team 2 investigated the transaction history of the house, focusing on the period from June to December 2024. During the period when the murder was suspected to have occurred, Team 3 narrowed down the people who lived, rented, or frequented the house during that time. On the afternoon of May 13, from the ward police data, Team 2 determined that the previous owner of the house was Ms. Nguyen Thi Hong, 62 years old, who sold the house to Mr. Vu. Ms. Hong used to live here with a niece named Tram, 25 years old, who worked as a street nail technician and did not register for temporary residence. The working group immediately contacted Ms. Hong via the registered phone number. When transferring the house, she seemed very surprised and evasive. "I moved to Da Lat and have nothing to do with it anymore. I was alone at that time." Ms. Hong quickly hung up after the ambiguous statement on May 14. After connecting data from the missing person system, there were 3 profiles that were relatively similar to the body found. One of them was Nguyen Thi Thanh Tram, who had been missing since September 2024. No official report was made. Only a report from a former roommate was made. Aidan's forensic analysis of the victim's bone sample compared with a hair sample taken from Tram's boarding house at the time of her disappearance showed a 99.7% match, confirming that the body was that of Nguyen Thi Thanh Tram, 25 years old, with no known blood relatives. Not registered for temporary residence. Missing since early September 2024. No one pursued. Lieutenant Duke reported in the afternoon meeting on the 14th. The information made the task force ponder a young girl was murdered and her body was dumped in the wall and no relative seriously reported her missing. That indifference made the case easier to bury. On May 15, Team 3 checked the population around the alley where the house was located. The old lady selling lottery tickets living nearby provided some remarkable information. At that time, around September or so, I saw the little girl going in and out of that house often. One day, I saw her arguing and fighting fiercely with Ms. Hong and then she disappeared. The detective team followed the statement back to the People's Committee of the ward to check the camera system nearby. A residential camera showed that on the night of September 7, 2024, Cam entered the house and did not leave. Thus, the victim Cam used to live at Ms. Hong's house and had a certain relationship. The night of September 7 was the last time she appeared. After that, Ms. Hong sold the house in January 2025. The time matched the time of death. So the task force decided to summon Ms. Nguyen Thi Hong to work on the morning of May 16. The door to truth began to open. But what made the investigators shiver even more was that Ms. Hong, the person suspected of murder and concealment, had an alibi. Surely on the night of her disappearance, was the murderer someone else who had borrowed her hand or covered up for her? Or was she the one who had planned so meticulously that she could bypass all evidence? The battle of wits began and the task force knew that this was not a simple murder case. On the morning of May 16, Ms. Nguyen Thi Hong was summoned to the Criminal Police Department headquarters. The woman in her 60s had more than half of her hair grey. Her eyes were sharp and wary, and she looked tired. She asked to leave early several times because of high blood pressure. But the task force was not easily fooled by her tired appearance. Captain Nguyen Minh Tuan began the interrogation in a calm voice. "Mrs. Hong, do you know Ms. Nguyen Thi Thanh Tram?" "Yes, she is my niece. They stayed at my house for a few months and then left without saying a word." "When was the last time you saw Ms. Cam?" "Around August last year. She got angry about something and packed her things and left. I thought she went to Bin Duong to get her nails done with a friend." But the detectives had them in hand. The camera data clearly recorded Cam entering the house on the night of September 7, 2024 and never coming out. Furthermore, a witness confirmed that there was a loud argument coming from Ms. Hong's house that night. However, when faced with the camera data, Ms. Hong did not flinch. She replied, "I just remembered the wrong day. It could have gone while I was sleeping or through the back door. I did not install a camera to watch it." When the investigation team tightened up with an accusatory question, did she know that Tram's body was found in the wall of her old house? Ms. Hong turned pale for a moment but immediately reacted, "What is impossible for me? I do not know. I did not touch any wall. When I sold the house, I lived alone. If there was a body, why didn't I smell it for months?" On the afternoon of May 16, the investigation team received evidence that turned the case around. A bank statement showed that Ms. Hong was in Da Lat from September 5. 2024 to September 11, 2024. Kimi from the hotel where she stayed in Da Lat also confirmed that she was there during the time she was allegedly murdered. A perfect alibi. An urgent meeting took place that night. Many eyes in the task force fell on a young investigator who sighed. So it wasn't Mrs. Hong. But Captain Nguyen didn't believe it that easily. He lightly tapped his hand on the table. An alibi was just a document. This murder didn't happen on its own. There might be someone who helped Mrs. Hong build an alibi, or she had an accomplice. On May 17, the detective team returned to the old house to check again while measuring the wall structures. A detail caught their attention. The wall where Cam's body was found was an addition that was not in the original blueprint. A local mason who had worked around the building confirmed that someone had rented it. I chatted with each kitchen area at the end of September last year. They said it was to fix the mold. Strangely, they didn't ask me to build it. They built it themselves and then called me back. Who was the tenant? A young man named Dang Tri Dung, Tram's ex-boyfriend. The task force found Dung in a game shop in Bin Tan district. Dung furtively confessed. At first he said he hadn't seen Cam for a long time. But under pressure from the evidence, Dung had to admit that I went to Mrs. Hong's house to see Cam. At that time, we had a conflict over money. But I swear I didn't kill him. When asked why he repaired the wall after the needle went missing, Dung stammered and could not explain. Searching Dung's phone, the investigation team discovered a deleted text message that was recovered using the cleanup technique. Don't leave anything behind. I'll send it again after that. Was it about cleaning the bar? By the end of May 18, the first pieces of the puzzle gradually appeared. Ms. Hong had an alibi but was the only person with the strongest motive in the house under her control. She had a conflict with Cam and was the one who left the scene right after Cam went missing. At that time, very brave, despite the suspicious signs, was not capable of planning to dispose of the body so carefully. The task force believed that the person who killed Cam could be the person who was proven innocent the earliest. The murder was not closed but had just begun to untie the knot of a silent death, and the person died twice. Once in the wall and once in the forgotten missing person file. Task Force 517H moved to the second phase of solving the case, reconstructing the entire course of the case on the night of September 7. Captain Nguyen Thi Thanh concluded in the internal meeting, "We are facing a criminal who knows the law, understands psychology, and is smart enough to create a perfect play. But he forgot one thing. Every plan, no matter how sophisticated, always leaves cracks, and those cracks will be the guide to the truth." The case is about to enter the most dangerous phase, fighting wits with the darkness. On the morning of May 19, Task Force 517H entered the phase of recreating the entire event of the night of September 7, 2024. The fateful night is believed to be the time when the victim Nguyen Thi Thanh Tram went missing. Captain Nguyen Thi Thanh chaired the internal meeting. All clues revolve around three subjects. Ms. Nguyen Thi Hong has an alibi. Dang Tri Dung is a direct suspect, and the victim of Cam's identity still has many gaps that have not been clarified. We will start from the simplest thing: the disappearance of Cam. 19/5, reconstructing the schedule. The detective team reviewed all the cameras in the area from May 5 to September 8, 2024. The unexpected result is on 9 Cam went to the mini supermarket to buy some normal-looking items. 6/9 online goods were delivered to Ms. Hong Tram's house. The recipient was 7/9 19H32. Cam walked out of the house, holding a trash bag. 7/9 20H1 Cam returned, then did not appear again. Bathing at 9:05 a.m. The front camera recorded Mrs. Hong's house lights being turned on unusually early. No one came out, but there was a small banging sound lasting about 3 minutes. Details: the light at dawn made Captain Thi Thanh frown. Why would an old person living alone wake up at 5 a.m.? Reason: on the afternoon of May 19, the criminal engineering team returned to the scene of the old house this time. They brought equipment to examine the wall layer and measure magnetic waves through the material. The result made the whole team stunned. 2 more walls were also rebuilt but did not match the original foundation. Breaking down the wall, the team discovered a broken phone. No SIM card, but still had a memory card. The engineering department immediately extracted the data, and inside was a short 47-second recording that made the whole team shiver. Deep voice: "Panic, what are you doing? Let go, I will leave here now." The woman's voice was cold and hoarse. "You want to spread that story? I told you don't dig too deep. The loud banging sound and then silence. On May 20th, Ms. Hong was summoned for the second time. In front of the recording evidence. She could no longer keep her composure. However, she still tried to refute. I don't know where that part came from. Whoever put my voice into my voice. Anyone can imitate. The task force decided to compare voice samples from the calls. Ms. Hong had performed the results to confirm that the recording was real and the female voice was Ms. Hong's. But she still kept a card in the end. I wasn't there, I was in Da Lat. You guys have hundreds of pieces of evidence. On May 21st, an unexpected turn of events. The alibi was broken. A detective named Lam, who secretly checked the hotel check-in process in Da Lat, found an internal camera in the hotel's storage room. The scene on the camera shocked the whole team. A young man about 25 years old, short and small, wearing a mask and a hat. Mrs. Hong was signing the book with the name Nguyen Thi Hong. This person had impersonated Mrs. Hong to hide from the camera. The reception area and the hotel set up an alibi. His identity was quickly verified. Mrs. Hong's late husband's cousin, Tran Ba Kian, had been in prison for fraud. On the evening of May 21st, Mrs. Hong was detained. However, before the investigation agency, she was still stubborn. Okay, I hired Kian to go to Da Lat. I just didn't want to get involved. But I didn't kill him, I just scared her and she fell. I didn't mean to. But the investigation team had a preliminary conclusion from the forensic pathologist that she died from a blunt object hitting her neck. Not from a fall, Captain Nguyen said softly, but the act of fabricating false evidence was definitely enough to prosecute her, and I believe she did more than scare her. The case began to close door by door. But the question remains, why was Cam murdered? What was the real motive? And what secret did she intend to spread? The answer lies in the dark past between the two women. One living alone, the other buried. The task force is preparing to uncover the final secret. Everything that has caused a life to lie behind the wall. On the morning of May 22nd, Task Force 517H temporarily detained Ms. Nguyen Thi Hong to continue the investigation. In the temporary record, she admitted to hiring someone to pretend to go to Da Lat to create an alibi, but still firmly denied the act of murdering Cam. What made Captain Nguyen Minh Tuan and the task force uneasy was that although Ms. Hong was suspicious and involved, they felt that she was not the direct perpetrator. On the afternoon of May 22nd, a new clue appeared, causing the entire case to be redirected to the Criminal Techniques Department, who examined the memory card in the phone and slowly restored it. 2 more video clips before being deleted were filmed with a hidden camera facing down under the table. In the second 3-minute video, a man entered Ms. Hong's kitchen and was Dang Tri Dung. The victim's ex-boyfriend Tram had set up a hidden camera before the two met here. Calm voice: I know what you and Mrs. Hong did. 5 years ago, I knew this house was not entirely bought by her. Dung was angry. What did you want from the beginning, or do you want to destroy everything? I want the truth to come to light. Otherwise I will file a lawsuit. Dung, don't be stupid. There are things you should leave alone. 23/5 The task force summoned Dang Tri Dung again. Dung initially appeared calm, but when questioned about the clip, he broke out in a sweat and refused to answer questions. The task force checked the location data from Dung's phone on the night of September 7, 2024. Surprisingly, the phone's location confirmed that he was at his biological parents' house in Tan Phu District, where they had been making eggs all night. However, Captain Tuan did not believe that he requested to access Dung's home camera, but the data had been cheesed. The digital forensic expert discovered that the camera had been tampered with. That night, Tuan, the one who destroyed the camera data, was the operator, and who that person was, there was no need to guess. In addition, 24/5, a sudden turn of events. A piece of nylon cloth wrapped around the victim's body was sent for fingerprint re-examination. This time using new technology from the Ministry of Public Security's Support Center. The team discovered a faint bloody fingerprint that matched Dang Tri Dung. The task force immediately requested an emergency arrest warrant for Dung on charges of murder, creating a fake crime scene, and destroying evidence. Dung was arrested on the evening of May 24. After 9 hours of struggle, he finally collapsed and confessed to all of Dang Tri Dung's crime. Tram used to be an accountant at the construction company that Dung and Ms. Hong invested in 5 years ago. When the company went bankrupt, Dung withdrew all the money and blamed the accountant. forcing Cam to admit his mistake because he felt sorry for Ms. Hong, who had taken care of him. Cam did not report Dung, but when Cam accidentally discovered that Ms. Hong's current house was bought with money withdrawn from the old company, she was angry. Cam began to collect evidence to expose Dung and threatened to file a lawsuit for property appropriation and tax evasion. On the evening of September 7, 2024, Dung went to meet Cam at Mrs. Hong's house where she temporarily rented Cam. During the struggle, Dung hit Cam hard on the back of the neck, causing her to lose consciousness and panic. He returned to his parents' house to establish an alibi until dawn the next morning. Returning to the scene, bringing mortar and tools and burying Cam's body in the wall behind the kitchen, Ms. Hong did not know about the incident until a week later when she saw Cam missing and heard Dung begging for help to keep him. She kept silent because she was worried about being implicated in money laundering. In return, she kept silent by allowing Dung to withdraw his alibi if he was suspected. On May 25, the task force made a record to conclude the initial investigation, prepare a case file to prosecute Dang Tri Dung for murder, creating a fake crime scene, destroying evidence of tax evasion. Nguyen Thi Hong concealed the crime, provided fake evidence of accomplices in terms of consequences. Captain Tuan concluded in the meeting, "We were almost fooled by a perfect alibi. But no crime can be hidden forever. The truth finally speaks." On the morning of May 26, after completing the procedure to prosecute Dang Tri Dung and Nguyen Thi Hong, the 517H task force intended to close the case. But when checking the victim's phone to restore all the data, the technician discovered a draft that had not been sent to the address. The recipient was a veteran investigative reporter named Tran The Hoa, currently working at Than That newspaper. The letter was dated September 6, 2024, just one day before Kim was murdered. Hoa M had discovered a money laundering ring through real estate in the inner city, including many street front houses and some apartments in central districts. Many of the houses were under the names of other people, but the money came from companies and backyards related to influential figures in Saigon. The house I am renting at 12 7th Alley 36, Phan Loc Ward is a link in the chain. The person in charge is Ms. Nguyen Thi Hong, but the money to buy the house was transferred from Trong Jia Company, which was investigated for tax evasion in 2020. If anything happens to me, let's start with this name. Trong Jia TGC file code 2020. The task force reported the contents of the letter to the command board of PC-02 on the afternoon of 26th. The Economic Crime Prevention Department stepped in to coordinate and expand the investigation. A new task force was established with codename 864, led by Lieutenant Colonel Tran Din Kang. Captain Nguyen Minh Tuan was also retained in the advisory board. 27/5. Preliminary investigation showed that Trong Jia Company was a construction company that was inspected in 2020, but the case quickly subsided. The legal name is a Shell director named Le Quoc Vin who left the country in early 2022 and has not returned. The money flow to buy the house where Cam was murdered followed a very unusual route. Trong Jia, Van Tuing Investment Joint Stock Company. Ms. Hong, the former homeowner, Ms. Hong Kai, I only received the money to buy the house transferred by Dung, and stood in his name for him because he had bad debt. Dung used to be the head of Trong Jia's finance department. This matches Tram's statement about him withdrawing money and hiding the illegal money flow. On 28 to 29 May, the 864K task force searched Trong Jia's 2020 files. The initial investigation file was led by a retired team leader. This person had been reported by the press many times, showing signs of storing important files. The TGC 202 file did not show that there had been 6 houses purchased in the names of employees, accountants or relatives. But there was no evidence of money laundering because the accounting data disappeared in a strange server fire. The final turning point came on the morning of 30 May. A former Trong Jia employee named NGO Min Dui suddenly came to the PC-02 headquarters to confess. He used to be an accountant. and was threatened by Dung to destroy his books. Dewey trembled. I had hidden a copy of the financial data before being forced to delete it. Tram had contacted me, but I was too scared to respond. Now that she was dead, I could no longer keep quiet. The hard drive contained financial data that matched the cash flow Kim discovered, which recorded more than 30 billion Vietnamese dongs from backdoor companies used to buy real estate in the name of outsiders, including the house where Kim was murdered. At the end of May 30th, Task Force 864K transferred the file to the Ho Chi Minh City People's Procuracy to prosecute the case of money laundering, tax evasion and destruction of evidence. Tram was not just the victim of a murder for personal revenge, but the person who almost exposed a professional money laundering system with the assistance of many powerful individuals. Captain Nguyen Minh Thuan wrote the last line in his case diary: "Silence has a price, and that price Tram paid with her life. But thanks to her, the door to darkness was opened. The case was closed, but a larger investigation was opening. No one knows how many houses with the smell of death are hiding other horrific secrets. The case of the stench in the walls is not just a typical murder story. It is the curtain covering a series of organized crime, where every brick could be evidence of a hidden secret. Tram's death is a wake-up call that sometimes to expose the truth, someone needs to dare to step into the darkness and pay the price. The truth is never on the surface. It lies under the bricks, the paint, and the terrifying silence. Excerpted from the investigation diary of Task Force 517. If you find this story attractive, suspenseful and engaging, please leave a comment below to let us know what you think. Click like if you want to support the spirit of the storytelling team. Share to spread the story to more people, and don't forget to subscribe to the Detective 24 Hours channel so you don't miss new, real, breathtaking cases.